Solid timing with yesterday's video, but we got an update, a minor one at that, for Black Ops 6 today that is a step in the right direction, and for me, a bigger part of it, a bit of the transparency. So today, we're taking a look at Black Ops 6 and the newest update and what changes it brought along with it, but let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, you like the changes, or find it at all insightful, and make sure to subscribe for more Black Ops 6 coverage along with other FPS content here in the near future. I'd love to have in the community. Also, we're going to be bringing back the streams on Twitch for a bunch of stuff, a lot of playthroughs from my gaming backlog. I was actually really pleasantly surprised to see how many people said they'd like to see Cyberpunk, so that's definitely in there, but should be up and running within the next week, I think. But anyways, let's get into this update. So the update today brought along changes for some really small things in multiplayer, changes in zombies, and nothing apparently for Warzone. But with the way the workload is distributed between studios, Treyarch wouldn't be handling any of these balancing or fixes for Warzone. That'd be a Raven thing. Today's communication came from, at least as of recording this, Treyarch and no one else, which is appreciated where applicable. But the changes made for multiplayer, we saw some changes to red light, green light, where it increased the XP awarded for match bonuses, and also added various stability fixes. It re-enabled the Maya Joyride operator skin that was previously invisible past 70 meters, and addressed some issues with the event tabs. They mentioned visual issues and audios for banner pop-ups, but hopefully another one of those that they fixed was the auto-equipping issues with the operator when scrolling past that I've seen a lot of players have issues with. But for multiplayer, that's about it. Small, minuscule stuff, but frankly, on the multiplayer side of things, there weren't as many problems, issues, or general frustrations with the game's performance or changes compared to other modes. I still would love to see them fix the flowing low challenge so that I could get 100% completion, but didn't get that, it appears, so the wait continues. For zombies, this is a revert to a lot of the changes made on the 3rd, which is interesting, good, but interesting. First, they opened with a statement from the studio saying, "Hey everyone, let's talk about those changes from January 3rd. The team is always focused on making zombies fun and rewarding. It's why we make games. But we don't always nail it the first time. Some fixes for bugs or exploits can be lower priority as more important issues come up, and some need to be held for an update further down the line. Last Friday's changes to Big Game for Shadow Rift, the Shock Charge speedrun step for Terminus, and directed mode spawn delays after 5 looped rounds are prime examples of these. We know it's not fun to see a fix multiple weeks later for something that wasn't bothering you in the first place, so we're reverting the directed mode changes, giving Shadow Rift 4 new buffs, and scheduling a fix to allow speedrunners to safely use the shock charge tactic in Terminus again. The first 2 are alive now, with the speedrun fix needing some extra testing before it goes live. Thanks to everyone for the reports of visual effects not showing properly in Citadel Day More, and crashes that can happen when you're using the sword while Aether Shroud is active with the Void Sheath augment. The team produces fixes for these bugs shortly after they popped up, and they're live today. So for that's greatly appreciated to realize, hey, this didn't quite hit the mark, let's walk it back, and relatively in decent timing by comparison to other changes we've seen made, not even a full week afterwards. The biggest thing to me, though, is the transparency, talking to players like it's just a casual game chat, explaining reasoning and what's still to come, which we also have a bit of details as to what that will include, but we'll get there in a second. So as for the changes in particular, again, they addressed the issues where the Void Sheath augment for Aether Shroud was one of those things the elemental swords would cause the game to crash. That's fixed. Directed mode had a few changes with the quest progression, and the biggest obviously being to directed mode that they removed that extended time between rounds and the delay after every 5th round. So I think it was like 20-ish seconds between rounds you had a bigger delay, and then the 5th round was the more noticeable one where I think it was like 45 seconds-ish of a delay on when zombies would spawn again. So this is great for the flow of pace of progression of, say, camos, if you just want to try and get some kills and stay at those lower rounds, whatever your reasoning is to be farming directed mode, it's now reverted back to where it was. The Shadow Rift, again, the activation rates were now buffed with a cooldown decrease so you can get it faster, and then Dead Light, Green Light was the other stuff that was changed directly, that it saw its round capped before forced exfil doubled to 20, and added the ability to play on Liberty Falls as well. Their little patch note footnote also mentions this is subject to being increased even further in week 3 after this upcoming week, depending on feedback from the community, which is nice. So whether or not they allow that to be uncapped, they cap it at 30, 40, we don't quite know, but that's something that using your feedback is going to be something they're going to take into account for what happens directly to next week, which is definitely nice. And then they also added various stability fixes, so obviously it's nice to not have the game crash when trying to do zombies, whatever the case may be that you're trying to attempt. Now, they also, in the midst of all of this over on Twitter and in the spirit of transparency, were communicating with a few post replies over there that indicated future changes still coming within Black Ops 6. Obviously, there's a lot more than this, but these are the things they led on. When asked, is there a possibility for the HUD settings to get separated between multiplayer and zombies so players don't have to keep changing their HUD when they switch between modes, Treyarch replied, it's in the works, which is definitely nice. A lot of people like to play with probably the redacted mode where it's something that doesn't have a HUD. It's a more hardcore variation of zombies. You don't have as much information fed to you, but if you want to use that, obviously, you probably don't want to have hardcore and the redacted mode in multiplayer. It's not exactly one-to-one with how that transfers, so having those between each two is definitely nice. I kind of think that it'd be nice to have that kind of stuff for some of the global weapon builds. That's something that we can talk about at a different day, though, because that gets down to then fundamental theories on how those work. But anyways, again, different story for a different day. They also mentioned add a way to track challenges, similar to what we had last year, and they said that was also currently in the works. So the second of those two, I'm in love with the idea of that returning. That streamlined challenge progression so much in Modern Warfare 3, and I honestly think it was probably one of the most, if not the most underrated quality of life addition that we saw in that game. And with the sheer abundance of how many challenges there are between camos, 100%er, Dark Ops, though probably can't track that actually, Reticle Mastery, and so on, I'd love to be able to work on a few of these challenges and see their progress actually in-game as it's made. It would save me a lot of time to see if something was either bugged or if I was making solid progress instead of having to back out and continuously check those challenges in the menus. Big win in my books on that one. So big picture, this is what I was talking about in yesterday's video that I was actually really surprised at how many people it appeared to annoy. Like, my bad. Just trying to voice some opinions on how I think some things should be handled. But anyways, this is the kind of stuff that I appreciate. The kind of stuff is what I'm asking for. Obviously changes too, but transparency and openness about your game is as big of an issue and something that can mitigate a lot of issues before they even begin in terms of reception. Explain changes to players, explain the timetables of when things are going to be coming, and empathize with those players in the player base. Going further into it, explaining things like a change can do so much more than a lot of people may realize. Like, maybe I don't particularly like a change that was made, but if I see a change that I don't agree with, but get an actual explanation and reasoning as to why it was made, chances are I can probably see that perspective of the developer and why it was changed, that maybe I still don't like it anymore, but at least I understand why they took that route. At least I can be like, no, that's valid. Explaining timetables of things are also something that's huge. Again, I can't say that I may like that we have to wait until Season 2 for some of these changes, but if I get a sort of explanation of, hey, this change takes a bit more time and is complicated because of X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna be, and I'm sure many others will be, way more understanding of those changes taking a little more time instead of wanting that to be added in immediately. And finally, empathizing with your player base, I think, is just like we saw today, just one of these sort of chats of, hey, we get it, wasn't our best play, sorry about that. I think that goes a long way. To me, it asserts that the game, they realize they're trying to make it fun and they're trying to make it the best game for you, for all involved. That's huge. It's just those small things in talking to the community, I think, that can make a massive difference between how it is received, between understanding and pitchforks. Sometimes that's a very, very thin line, and sometimes it's hard to walk, but I think that communication, openness, and transparency is a huge key to doing so. But anyways, that's where we're at. It's also confirmed that Season 2's launching is strangely on Tuesday the 28th, so a little weird with that. Usually we see that stuff happen on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and we had this sort of theory that, oh, they're probably going to add a day or two to the Battle Pass to make it match that, but it doesn't seem so. The Battle Pass will not be adding any more time, and instead we just have it Tuesday the 28th. So an odd day for the launch, but something that we now know that endpoint definitively here for Black Ops 6 and when we can expect the next major content drop to be happening. So that said, that's going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this change here in particular, or this update rather? Do you guys like what we saw here out of this? Not so much. Whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. Of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 6 as we gear up for Season 2 in the near future, more FPS content on the horizon with other games, and a lot of other stuff. I'd love to have you in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.